Hello, hello. Welcome back. This is For Book's Sake with Heather Roberts and Veronica Adams of 1852 Media. Good
Hello,
morning, Veronica.
hello. Good morning.
Well, it's
It's
morning for
hard not
us.
to, it is morning for us now recording the podcast, and it's
Yes,
hard not to be in a good mood because it's a Friday for
it
us.
is. It is a
And
Friday for
that
us.
intro is a bop.
It,
I want to dance to it every time you play it.
it is a bop. I can't stop my head from going
I
back and forth.
know.
It's hilarious.
It's like feel good music. All right, we're going to talk about book stuff.
Yeah. So today's topic is I Want My HEA, also known as What is Romance?
Yes. This one, it shocks me that we even have to have this conversation, but I think it's an important one.
I do. So for those who don't write romance, or maybe even for some who do,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I'm afraid this is important for some who do.
a romance by definition means that there is a happily ever after or a happy for
Yes.
now, that the two main
Yes.
characters have found love with one another and that they are happy at the end of the book.
Yes.
That is a
Yes, yes, yes.
romance. And also, well, romance being that the book is about them, finding love with one another. I
Their
think that that's
connection
important.
is the crux of the plot. That's what
Right.
drives the story from start to finish.
Correct. And then the ending is that they find a happily ever after. Just like with a mystery book, a straight up mystery book, you
Yes.
expect them at the end to figure out the mystery.
That's right. Who did it?
Who did it? What
Yes.
happened? All of that. Same thing, same concept with a romance novel that, at the end of the book, they are going to end up
We are
happy
in
together.
love.
We are in
Or at
love.
least in lust enough to be riding off into the sunset together for now.
Yes. Yes. For Happy for Now is totally legit romance ending.
Absolutely.
They do not have to, have an epilogue 20 years into the future with a whole, gang
Exactly.
of kids. That is not necessary, although those are great. I mean,
Yeah.
we do love that. So
Let me ask, what's your favorite romance ending? Are you more of an HEA or an HFN? Happily ever after, or happy for now?
I am a happily ever after girly.
Same.
I do there's times that I'm okay with the happy for now. But I'm a happily ever after girly.
Yeah, totally.
It's just, I don't know. It just does it for me. I just that's the thing.
Happily ever after feels so much more complete to me, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's more
I don't
satisfying.
yeah, and I don't mind happy for now. I really don't. I've read some really great happy for now endings.
Yeah.
But when you leave things to my imagination that maybe they stay together forever, or maybe this was just
A
you
summer
know,
fling or
exactly.
yeah. No,
And
I
that this
mean,
isn't going to last. Then my mind starts filling in that epilogue that didn't get written, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like there's less closure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's the
And
same thing.
yeah.
I need my ends tied up. I need it in a little bow. I need you to give
Hmm.
it to me so I feel good at the end. All the
So I
warms
guess you
and
could say we're both
fuzzies.
purists then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We
that is
are.
definitely not to to throw shade at the
No.
happy for now ending. Those are perfectly valid. They're great.
And some people love them more than happily ever
Hmm.
after. I mean, it's a
Sure.
personal preference. We just
Yeah.
happen to have the same personal preference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important to talk about, just because your book has romantic elements in it and that there are two people who are falling in love or have some
Hmm.
sort of love connection does not necessarily mean that your book is a romance.
That's right.
Because your book could be a women's fiction title that the main crux of the story is about the female main character's journey
Yes.
to find herself, and that
Right.
happens to also include a love interest. That does not necessarily make it a romance. It means that romance readers will probably enjoy it, but that
Yeah,
doesn't
definitely.
mean that the book itself is a romance. If a main character dies, like one of the main love interests dies at the end, it is not a romance. It is not a romance.
So true.
Um, it's just not. So you can't have
Right.
them fall in love and then he
Right.
dies or she dies
Well,
or
and
they die, whatever.
if the plot is really more about a single character's journey in any way, shape, or form, and the love interest is secondary. And you see the love interest less often than all of the other little side things going on in the story. I've read some books where they were marketed as romance,
Mhm.
categorized as romance, all of that. And truthfully, they really were more of like a women's fiction kind of adventure where the heroine's journey is really the primary plot device.
Right.
And we see the love interest as often as we see like the family comic relief, like the
Yeah.
cranky grandfather or the nosy mother or whatever. And yeah,
Or the
those
fun
things just
grandmother.
exactly like whatever the case may be, uh not not a traditional romance in any way, shape, or form. Definitely more of a women's fiction with a romantic subplot. You could even market it as romantic women's fiction because there is a
Exactly.
love interest.
Yeah, and that's so for people wondering like, well, how do I market my book then if it's not a
Exactly.
romance?
Yeah.
You put in, love story. It is if you can say that it's a love story. Like Nicholas
Yes.
Sparks novels are not
Love
romance books. They
stories.
are love stories.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yes, they are love stories.
Yes.
Or you can say romantic suspense with romantic elements. I mean, that's a little bit of a mouthful, but you can say suspense with romantic
Right.
elements or
Romantic thriller.
romantic thriller or, yeah, something like
You
that.
you can really make almost any other genre romantic. I mean, just
Correct.
just put romantic in front of whatever is a better fit because there is not an HEA or an HFN in your book, or the romance is not the plot device.
Right.
Um, romantic urban fantasy,
Exactly.
romantic high fantasy, whatever it is you've written
You
has
can
romantic
make it into a
elements.
thing.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, it's not all is not lost. You just need to
Right.
figure out how to tell people what your book is, because this goes back to that evergreen marketing tip from a couple of episodes ago about expectations. This
Yes.
goes into the expectation of the person who's picking up your book. If they're picking it up and they expect a happily ever after and you do not give that to them, they're going to
Yes.
be upset.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
they're gonna not be they're not gonna throw your book in a way like throw it across the room. They're not they're not gonna do that in a way that makes other people want to read it. They're gonna do it in a way that makes them actually upset.
Yeah.
Because listen, I've thrown a book across the room and been like, everyone needs to read this, but that's not what that's not what they're gonna
Can probably think of which book that was, but
do.
that's for another podcast.
Yeah, right.
Um, uh, it-
What?
I have the visual of you tossing the book in my head, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
Heather's chucking paperbacks like they're axes or something. Um,
Could do that. Could do that.
no, I think just to pile on to the point, like it's important if what you've written has romantic elements but is not really truly a romance that you find ways to set it apart to set those reader expectations, because
Exactly.
you want someone who's new to your brand to become at least a regular reader, if not a loyal one, right?
Right.
You pour your heart and
It's
soul
a
out
whole
into writing
thing.
this thing, editing it, covering it, marketing it. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you don't want to throw away the chance to earn long-term readers by not having your bona fides with the marketing in order.
Yeah, you don't yeah, you're basically miscategorizing it and
Exactly.
misclassifying it, maybe is a better
Right.
way of saying it. But yeah.
Right. And what you're
Um
going to do is alienate readers who don't want romance by marketing your book as a romance when it's not. So you're going to lose out on people who would read um, whatever your book really is. Let's say let's say it's romantic suspense, or it's really just a thriller, but there's a love story subplot that does not necessarily have the happiest of conclusions. You're going to lose a lot of suspense and thriller readers by marketing it as a
oh
romance.
yeah, for sure.
Because unfortunately, there is a hmm,
Subset.
yeah, there are just some folks out there who turn their noses up at anything romance.
Which is ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, it's ridiculous.
But to me, it's the number one reason why you wouldn't want to market a book as romance if it's not truly a happily ever after or happy
Oh,
for
for
now
sure.
ending.
I mean, you're not going to find your right readers for the title,
Exactly.
just
Exactly.
period. Because yes, there are people out there who still turn up their nose at romance. I mean, we see
Mhm.
it all the time with the derogatory terms about it. It's a trashy book or whatever. And
Well,
like,
it's the
listen,
misogyny that
yeah,
goes on, that
exactly.
is rife in our society, and some of it's internalized and some of it's contextual, and like there's just a whole bunch of that.
There's so much nuance with romance too. Like, not
Right.
all romance is the same. Like, there's just
So
so
true.
many different levels of romance. There's different levels of spice. There's
Hmm.
different styles of writing.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen some critiques about certain popular books saying that they're written so like in a juvenile manner. Like, not
What does
everything.
that even
Right.
mean?
Like, not everything has to be some literary work of prose. Like,
Right.
it
Right.
doesn't have
But
to
if you've
be.
written a suspense thriller, you're probably going to be able to find at least a small cache of readers who think that way to read your book and perhaps enjoy it.
Yeah.
And they certainly are not going to take a chance on it if you're marketing it as romance because of
Right.
that mentality. And then you're going to get romance readers who are like, well, this was disappointing because it's not a
Because
romance.
it's not actually a romance. So you're
Exactly.
shooting yourself in the foot. Like, that's
Yes.
just, really what
Yes.
you're doing. But yeah,
So
I mean,
really, we're talking to people who don't write romance, not people who do.
right. Basically. I mean, but if you do write romance, make sure that you're talking about the right kind of romance because you can't just say
Yeah.
you can say it's a contemporary romance or a historical romance, or something like that.
One of
But
the big umbrellas that catches
right.
almost anything.
But there's so many subcategories to romance, and if you're not
Yes.
specifically identifying that subcategory, you're also missing out on a whole group of readers who's
Oh,
going to
so
be,
true.
going on the big Zon and searching for XYZ
Hmm.
romance, small town romance, BDSM romance, like different kink romance. Now you have to be
Hmm.
careful, right? With what you're putting in for your keywords, but with the different kinds of romance that are out there, if you're not talking about the specific subgenre that you're
Yeah.
in, then you're
Yeah.
also missing out on a whole group of readers that you could otherwise be capturing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And making sure that you are appropriately using tropes in your marketing too.
Yes. Oh my
I mean,
God.
even when you've drilled it down by subgenre or subcategory, it's really important to put the tropes out there to catch readers' eyes. I think, and this is just a side effect of the market being so saturated because
Yeah.
there are so many people who have now entered the space and are writing books for themselves because it is so much easier to do, and we don't have to worry about traditional publishing gatekeeping the industry anymore. Um, but yeah, making everything as clear as possible for the reader with the lowest attention span.
Sorry, I just had tea go
No
down my throat.
problem.
But no, I totally agree. And you need to be able to explain what your book is. I think tropes right now are selling books so much more than like blurbs for like
Yeah.
now you want your blurb to have the tropes in it, but sometimes just listing what the tropes are in like the subtitle of the
Yep.
book will
Yep.
do it. Like sometimes people aren't even reading
Title,
blurbs sometimes.
series, trope, book number, done. Like
Yeah,
I couldn't give you a better string for an Amazon listing right there. And
exactly.
this actually makes me think about the changes that are coming to Amazon in terms of the categories
Yeah.
too, and like this is a pretty timely conversation based on the fact that we are now going to be living in a world where you used to have the option to ask to be put into up to 10 different categories
Yep.
on that particular platform. And now we're going down to just three.
Yes.
So you definitely have to have a really good feel for what categories your book actually belongs in. Unless you're playing category games, which some people
Which
do.
some people do. But hopefully you're picking, and they also changed how you pick the categories. So like
Right.
before they used to do it with this whole different system where it was more of like a library. I'm just, glossing over the details, but it basically was a library categorization system.
Mhm.
and you would pick, where you thought you landed in that. And then Amazon would then pick the eventual categories that you should be in based upon
Right.
that. Now they've actually made it so you could pick the actual Amazon category. Wild, I know. The actual Amazon category that you think that your book should be in, and you only get 3 now, as opposed to, like Veronica was saying, up to
Right.
10. But I mean, I like it for the fact that you have to be specific about
Mhm.
what it is, and you don't have up to 10 now, because some people were just like literally like throwing spaghetti on a wall with these categories, and let's
Yes.
see where I can get an orange banner.
Right.
Um
Right.
like, getting
And
number 1 in C stories when your book is about like
mermaids.
well, no, like when your book is like a ice hockey romance and they just happen to go out on a
Oh,
boat for like a date night. Like,
okay. He's
that
he's he's a goalie with a sailboat.
yeah, I don't know, just making shit up now. But yeah, like people would just put stuff in smaller categories with hopes to have it elevate, in thus the category games you were
Right.
speaking
Right.
of.
Right. Well, and
But
and also because on the back end, if you can get momentum in one category, we have seen, not that we have any evidence of this because of how non-transparent Amazon is, but we've
right.
seen where a book, it'll take off because it starts to rise in one category and then Amazon will organically show it in some of the others. So
Movers and shakers.
that's right. That's right. It's been a helpful tool for some people. I'm neutral on the practice because I see the benefits and the drawbacks to it.
I think,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I think
it's not
as
the best
long
look, but also everybody's trying to sell books.
everyone's
So
trying to do something, and as long as it's not illegal, I mean, go for it,
exactly.
right? Like, as long as it's
Exactly.
not going to get your Amazon account shut down, because that's like the
Right.
death knell,
Right.
then do it. We are in the wild, wild west of publishing. Like,
Yes, but should we maybe perhaps touch on the issue of erotica categories since
oh gosh,
since
yeah,
we're
since we're talking about categories now.
yeah, since it came up.
Well, and also with this new change, Amazon is now making you click whether your book has adult content in it.
Right.
Our official advice, if you're listening to this, if you've gotten this far, is do not click that button. Don't do that.
Nope.
Put Unclick the button. Unclick it. Put the age range 18 plus, but do not click that
Yes.
button. It will immediately throw your book into the erotica dungeon. And Veronica,
From
what
which you
if?
will never escape
Yeah.
because once you go in, they do not let you out.
Although right now, at this very moment, June 9th is today's date, just FYI. Just so we know, I have a
Okay.
timely date.
For the
If
year of
you
our Lord 2023.
Yes, if you do click the button and you go in and unclick it, right now within like 24 hours, they are taking you out of the dungeon. I do not think that will last. I think it's just because this is a new feature and it's confused a lot of people.
Okay.
But yes, normally, once you're in, you're in.
Is that working for books that were published in like 2015?
That I don't know. These are new releases. These are new releases that I'm talking about. So
Okay. See, and that makes a difference, right? It's about you're
yes,
publishing today and choosing the categories today and verifying the
yes.
content today versus you published a book however long ago. Amazon decided to put it in the erotica dungeon, as we refer to it. And now
Yes.
readers can only find it if they can search for it by title and author name without any sort of mistakes or extra spacing or
And sometimes not even
extraneous
then.
characters. Yeah.
Like,
And sometimes not even then will it populate in a
yeah,
search result.
you can only get there by a direct link
Right.
sometimes. And
And that's what's
obviously,
so bad about being listed as an erotic title on Amazon.
yes, obviously that is a problem if you're trying to market your book and somebody's going
Mhm.
to look for it and then they can't find it.
Yep.
And then you just start dropping. And then obviously you don't get all the other benefits of populating within their algorithm.
Right.
So,
Because it doesn't matter what happens. They're
yeah.
not going to show you to anyone because you've been categorized as erotic.
Yeah. Which
Yep.
is a whole nother conversation, because what they consider erotic and what is actually erotic are two different things. I mean,
Yes. So true.
they will oftentimes put a contemporary romance that simply has some spicy scenes in it into the dungeon.
Right.
And you're like, why? What did we do in the blurb? That's usually the first thing you look at. You're like, what word did I use that triggered this bot to throw me into the
Mm-hmm.
dungeon? Because there was a time where Bastard was doing it.
Yes. I've
Alpha.
seen Alpha was the one I was going to throw out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we can't use the word alpha. Saying the word sex too many times. You just
Mm-hmm.
try not to use it at all.
Yep.
Um, you know, any sort of kink, right? Don't say
Yep.
those words, or BDSM.
Find euphemisms to describe kink and use an editorial note to be clearer about it for the reader.
And for the love of all things holy, never say dubcon or non-con.
Oh,
Oh my God,
yeah.
don't
Just
do
keep
that.
con out of it
Keep it
completely,
out.
please.
Keep it out. If you want to put that is a content warning, you say CCW. Don't even say
Yeah.
content warning.
Yeah.
CCW on author's website, because oh my gosh, that will
Yeah.
immediately throw you in there.
For anyone who's
That'll
listening who
ban
does
your
not know
book.
what we're talking about, con is shorthand for consent. So
Yes. So
dubcon is dubious consent, non-con is no consent, and it describes sexual acts that take place in the book
that do not
with
have
those
consent.
levels of consent being none or dubious,
Correct.
false pretenses, or some sort of trickery.
There's no, yes, there's yes,
Mm-hmm.
no, there's
Yep.
all sorts of levels
Yes.
there. And yeah, that is I helped an author once who had their book banned off of Amazon
Due to
because
consensual
due
issues.
to dubious consent.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, unfortunately she had a word in her blurb that triggered the review that I'm having
Delisted the book and got her account.
flashbacks. Having flashbacks. And then it's not just that, like your book. Okay, so if the book gets banned, right? Your
Mhm.
account then is like flagged.
Yeah.
It's legit
And then
flagged.
your books get suppressed,
Yeah,
even the ones that aren't in erotic
that
categories or
correct.
otherwise have been depublished,
And
unpublished.
they will tell you that
Mm-hmm.
your account's not suppressed. There's no flag
Yes,
on it.
it is.
Yes, 100%. But like
Yes,
evidence
it
dictates
is.
otherwise, like
Yes.
100%. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
enough of this. You've seen enough of this to know
Yep.
that it is real. It's essentially shadow banning on Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it, but
They've
it's
been doing it for as long as we've been doing this.
yeah, exactly. So you want to stray away from those issues as much as possible.
Yes.
Because that is just a nightmare to
While
have to
still
go
finding
through.
a way to very clearly set those reader expectations about whether your book is or isn't a romance, because it can be an erotic romance. I'm also in the middle of promoting some very erotic fantasy books that have romantic subplots, but are absolutely not romances.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, you just have to be crystal clear with your readers about
very
that, and you have to
specific.
understand the rules of the road yourself.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I mean, there's just so many pitfalls that you
Mm-hmm.
can accidentally fall into.
Yep.
I mean, I've had clients who have published books, gotten thrown into the erotica dungeon. This is like previous, not in the current moment in which you can pull yourself out in a minute.
Some snapshot in time in the past.
Yeah, because heaven only knows how long this is going to last. Like we just don't
Yeah,
know.
right.
But I've had them literally depublish the book,
Mm-hmm.
unpublish the book, and then republish it using different categories and fixing whatever, because it was easier for them to do that, lose whatever pre-orders that they potentially had on
Yep.
the title,
Yep.
than to try to get it to be pulled out of the dungeon before release day.
Yep.
And that tells you how bad that is.
Right. When you're willing to give up your pre-orders.
Yeah. When you're willing, and potentially your pre-order privileges.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because something like that can absolutely get your account flagged for future listing of pre-orders.
Yeah,
I think the minimum ban is a year on that now.
it
Like
is.
when they remove your pre-order privileges, you're done with that for at least 365 days.
Which is a nightmare, because if you've ever
If
done a live release before,
Mhm.
it is it's not fun.
Oh, you don't like live
I do
releases.
not like live releases.
Oh.
Okay, so here's my problem with live releases. And listen, there's benefits. I understand there's benefits to live releases. The benefits to live releases being, let's talk about them first. The benefits are that the rank gets populated immediately, right? So people are
Mhm.
rushing to download your book because it's
Yes.
brand new and live. They haven't had an
Right.
opportunity to
They didn't
pre-order.
get a chance to pre-order it.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you're getting a huge influx of potentially, hopefully, a huge influx of downloads or page
Yes.
reads or whatever it is on your title on
Mhm.
release day, which triggers the Amazon algorithms. Because I'm assuming this book is in KU. It triggers them to like you and to
Yeah.
push you up in the movers and shakers and to put you in the out, like, this is a hot freaking book, right?
Yep.
So your rank is going to then reflect all of those downloads and page reads and everything at one time. Whereas if you're doing a pre-order on a title, your rank is reflecting the pre-order of that title on the day in which the book is pre-ordered.
Mhm.
So if you have 1,000 pre-orders, but they happened over a course of 6 months, then your rank is not going to be the same as if you got the 1,000 pre-orders
1,000
on the day
downloads
of.
or borrows on the day of release.
Now,
Right.
Apple does give a boost to you, does give you credit for the pre-orders in their ranking system on the day of release. Amazon started to give you a little bit of a boost, giving you credit for those
Yeah.
pre-orders on the day of in your rank on the day of release. Not the same level of as Apple, but
Mhm.
they're doing it a little bit. But here's the downfalls of not having a pre-order. There's You don't have anything to market. You're telling people about your book, but you're
And they
not.
can't go pre-order it.
Yeah, they can't.
Where are you sending them?
Where are you sending them? You're talking
To
about this book.
your newsletter, hopefully.
Yes, I mean, if you are doing a live
Or
release,
Goodreads
yes.
or BookBub.
So you don't have any specific call to action that they could
Yeah.
immediately buy. And
Right.
that is a problem when you have people who like this is how the market works, is that when people see something, they get impulsive and they want to buy it.
Yes.
So you've potentially lost the sale because now they have to
There's nothing
wait.
to
Yeah,
buy.
there's nothing to buy. And they may not remember about you. They may
Right.
not remember the title
Your
later.
marketing may not get back in front of them the way it did during the pre-order period after the book is live. You're gambling on
You're
that.
gambling, which is why you should send them to your newsletter if you are doing a live release.
Yes.
The other issue is with the Zon itself, and other, platforms. So
Yes.
I'm going to pretend like we're in an Amazon Kindle Unlimited situation.
Okay.
You can do everything that they say and upload the files within all of the time frame that they say and do everything right. And then they will not publish your book.
Yep.
And they'll be like, "Oh, it's happening." And like you've now scheduled
Mhm.
release day
Mhm.
promotion. So if you're
Mhm.
working with us, we have a release splits. You've
Yep.
likely scheduled newsletter swaps with other
That's right.
authors. You have
You've
things
booked third-party
lined up.
promotional newsletter features. You've got all kinds of things going.
And if Amazon just decides to drop the ball, which
Yeah.
happens more than you want to know, then you're out all of that.
Yeah.
All of it. You've lost the momentum from the beginning.
Mhm.
And it happens frequently, unfortunately, with live
Yes, it does.
releases.
And the flip side of that coin is that you do everything right and they publish the book too soon.
Yes,
And your book sits there for 2 or 3 days before your marketing effort starts. And
happening.
it starts sinking in rank. And you are now working against a mountain you didn't intend to have in front of you on release day
Yep.
in terms of getting that book to get onto the charts and be a mover and shaker and get some algorithmic help from all of your efforts,
Yeah.
boosting it up the charts.
And also think about the flurry that has to happen once you get that link. So
Mhm.
say, because they say publishing could take up to 72 hours. But oftentimes it'll be live that night, the night that you
Right.
press it, or
Yep.
it'll just be live at some point within the 72 hours. So you just don't know. So you have like 3 days where you're just sitting around waiting for them to publish this book. Oftentimes it
Right.
takes like a few hours, up like 12 hours sometimes. It really varies. It varies so much. And then sometimes they just won't do it within the 72
Yeah.
hours. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But then think about when you get that link. you now have scheduled all this other promotion, all this other stuff, right, that you're doing to
Mhm.
promote your book. You now finally have the link. You now have to go insert that link and send it to all these people and tell everybody that's live so that they can now send out their promotional packets to their people
Yep.
with the proper link. It's just a lot of emergency flurry. I don't know
Mhm.
how else to describe it. It's like you run around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying
Yeah.
to dot your I's and cross your T's. Um, it's stressful. It is stressful. And that is the reason why I don't like live releases. That's why I don't like it. It's very stressful for no reason. Because here's the thing, like, pre-orders have started to kick up, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
not, and the live release doesn't mean the same as it did back in 2015. Like, back in
Right.
2015, it made a difference. It made a huge difference. In 2023, it is not like that anymore.
Right.
Um,
You're not getting the same boost that you
yeah,
used to.
you're not getting the same boost, and it's just not as advantageous as it used to
Mhm.
be to do a live release. So I say get those pre-orders, get those guaranteed
Yeah.
sales. I'd rather you,
Especially if you're
yeah.
not in Kindle Unlimited for that matter,
Oh,
because I
oh
think
yeah,
it makes no sense whatsoever to do a live release wide. You should definitely be pushing for those pre-orders on non-Amazon platforms.
absolutely, absolutely. But even if you do have an Amazon a series, especially
Hmm.
if you have an Amazon Kindle Unlimited series, some people will pre-order. They will.
Yeah.
And, even if you're going to Kindle Unlimited and you have a series, you're missing out on a potential pre-order with every release in that series if you don't have
Hmm.
it. Um, so I mean, we've slightly deviated from what is romance, but I
I
feel
was
like
well.
this is romance. This is the romance industry.
It is. It is. This
Um,
is relevant to publishing romance. It's relevant to publishing
it
anything,
is.
honestly. Perhaps fiction more than nonfiction, but still just broad based. Solid advice for anybody who writes books,
Yeah.
especially for themselves and is responsible for their own marketing.
But yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
I am going to skip. It's going to be a little shorter episode because I have something I have to go do. But I'm going to skip to the Evergreen Publishing
Yes,
marketing
let's do
tip,
it.
rather. Evergreen marketing tip. So, my tip this week is that you have to talk about your book or your product, whatever it is. We're talking about books today, so books. You have to
Yes.
talk about your book. You have to talk about it before it releases. You have to talk about when it releases. You have to talk about it after it releases. You have to talk
Yes.
about your book all the time.
Yes.
And talking about it can look like a variety of things. You can actually talk about your book, right?
Hmm.
But you can also post things about your book. It doesn't have to be just like buy my book. It can be talking about the plot. It can be giving excerpts. It can be talking about your writing style. It can be
Hmm.
talking about how much you love the cover. It can be talking about taking your book places and filming it and making a funny TikTok about it and all the places that
Yep.
your book visited. I'm just coming up with stuff here. But yeah, you need to
Talk
talk about
about the
it.
book or
Talk
the
about it
product.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Just keep talking about it.
Hmm.
Even if you feel like you're shouting into a void, eventually you will catch someone who wants to hear it, you know?
Absolutely.
And the more that you post, the more that you talk about it, the more likely it is that you're going to be reaching that
Mhm.
person.
Yes.
So that is my evergreen marketing tip
It's a good
of the
one.
week. Thank you.
I
Thank
like
you.
that.
So next week, I don't think we have a topic announced, so it'll be a fun surprise.
Oh, I like surprises.
Yes. So we
I have
will
to
come
come
up
up with
with
something.
something. Yeah. If you have suggestions, hit us up at
Yeah.
1852
Yeah.
Media.
If you want to hear us talk about something specific, reach out.
Absolutely. If you, a topic you want us to dive into or a question, we're happy to address those. So,
Yeah, 1852media.com. You can find all of our contact information.
absolutely. And the podcast. The podcast is
Yes.
there. And we
Yes.
should be listed on Apple Podcasts as well as Google soon. So, very
Yay.
exciting. Very exciting
That
news.
is.
So, all righty. Until next time, thanks for being with us on For Buck's Sake. Such a bop.
It is.